Okay, now please call it to order. We're live on YouTube.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order at 6:05. Walter's having technical difficulties and hopefully he'll join us in a few moments. You'll keep us posted on that, I assume?
Yes.
Adjustments to the agenda? Go ahead.
Just the one thing that I had, we had gotten the agreement from our auditor that I sent to you all. It's not on the agenda, but I would like to get that approved so that she has the authorization to do the audit on January 14th.
Okay, why don't we take that up on the new business after J? Also, I'm going to request at the end of the meeting that we have an executive session to discuss a personnel matter. Or I guess I should say right before the end of the meeting. And also, I was under the impression, Walter's not here, but I was under the impression that Walter had asked for an agenda item to extend the stump dump stickers or demolition debris stickers for 30 days at the end of the year. Did I dream that, or I thought I saw that in an email? Because we were late getting that sheet out and with all the COVID stuff. Maybe I dreamed it.
Yeah, I didn't see that, but Todd's going to give us an update.
There's Walter.
Yeah. He's going to give us an update on the transfer station board.
No, I wasn't talking about that. I was talking about the demo facility. But
yeah, I don't recall that, John.
Walter's here now, I guess. So
and on my end, I have absolutely no problem with that. That makes a lot of sense. I also didn't recall seeing that, but I sometimes overlook things. But it seems like a good idea.
We can ask Walter.
Yeah, is my audio live now?
Yep.
Yeah.
Walter, audio and video.
I had to change platforms because I upgraded to Mac OS Big Sur, and as usual, you have to find out all the security conflicts. So,
Walter, I called the meeting to order, and we added. Owen requested an adjustment to. We put it after J in the new business to execute the agreement with our auditor, and I asked for an adjustment to add an executive session after future meetings to discuss a personnel matter. And then you came on just as I was asking. I thought you had requested an agenda item a while back to extend the demolition debris stickers. I could be wrong, and that's when you joined in. And so take it away.
okay. Yes, I do want to extend that deadline, but we'll get to it with the new business or old business.
Okay.
So is that all those all the changes?
Well, I had one question. Do we have a recommendation from Jerry regarding a performance bonus?
No, I have not tied off with him on that, and I apologize. I missed our meeting last week.
And this is, at this point, this is our last scheduled meeting.
Yeah, I know.
We may have more though.
There might be need for one more, actually.
Yeah.
Just on that, my 2 cents, I would support consideration of a performance award for that employee. I understand you all want to see it come in a certain format, but this is an opportunity. If you feel that he's deserving of it, you do have that opportunity.
Yep.
You talk to his department head.
Okay. All right. So are there public comments for items that are not on the agenda?
I've received no communication that folks wanted to. There's some members of the public here that don't necessarily have items on the agenda, but I haven't received anything about I would like to speak.
Okay. All right. Okay. Treasurer's report.
Okay. So, I mean, generally speaking, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and I think that there are some. So I'll just do it generally speaking. I mean, especially in consideration to when we were asking to approve the budget and the concerns around COVID and what it was going to do to the economy and cascading effects. We've somehow managed to look pretty okay at this time of the year. But for some of the smaller revenues are still good. Basically, on balance, all of our state revenues are above our projections. We are definitely on track to hitting our auto excise projection. I was communicating with the DOT folks today, the local roads assistance program check. We were in the first bin, so we should be getting that shortly. It's the same usual folks. Ambulance billing is down for very understandable reasons. There's a couple of smaller ones, like looking them over and realizing that we don't have all our projected lease revenue. We reached out to some of the folks that we have relationships, but you're talking $130 for some of that. But generally speaking, on the revenue side, we're looking very good and healthy. And on the expense side, there's some things that stand out, individual lines that are overspent. For the most part, those are understandable. Phil and I spent quite a bit of time today going over and making sure that we had put the proper expenses in the proper places. We got some feedback from board members when we gave financials. We've gone through and tried to look at those. But departments have been doing really good at being frugal. We are going to be submitting for reimbursements. We're shifting around some grants that we already have and offsetting expenses that way. So generally speaking, we're in pretty good shape. And I provided some information in my treasurer's report, but I'm sure that folks have questions about specific things, and I'm happy to provide answers if I can.
John or Jan?
Yeah, I have just a question, Amy, since you're on concerning the ambulance billing. I'm assuming that this is related to just less ambulance demand for service. Is that correct?
How much is the ambulance billing? I haven't got.
It looks like we're at 73% of the revenue right now, with about 18,000 below where we budgeted. But I'm assuming that's not really a billing problem. That's more related to
Correct.
A lack of demand or lower demand.
Right. We don't have it. We're like 100 plus less calls this year.
Okay.
Is the total right there, Owen? Can you tell me how much we brought in for billing?
Yep. So AMB billing, we projected 70,000. Year to date on December 10th, we had brought in 51,170. That was the 73% that Jan was referring to. So outstanding yet to hit our projection anyway is 18,800 and change. The ALS, we had projected 7,500. We are at 3,375, which is 45% of what we had projected. We did just get a check from North Haven in today, which was an ALS one.
And there should be a Vinyl Haven one that I just billed out to.
Yeah,
so I just did that billing.
Yeah, so I know these are not going to hit our projections, but they will grow and get closer. And the one thing I put in the treasurer's report specific to this, I just thought it was interesting. On the expense side, ambulance at that time had only consumed 70% of its fuel budget, which I just thought was interesting, that we were at 73% of revenue. So it almost seemed to be, if the truck isn't running, there's no one to bill. And so fuel costs are down, and so are revenues.
And can either of you give me a sense of, have we billed all of the services to date, or is there still a pending bill for this last month?
So those are billed to date as of the end of October. So November 14th through now is being billed now.
Okay. So we'll see additional revenue then, obviously.
Correct. Yep,
Okay, thank you. That's my only question.
thanks.
John?
Yeah, I actually went through this with a fine tooth comb today, and I had several questions, and I spent about an hour or 45 minutes on the phone with Phil and somewhat with Owen, and they are looking into some of those. Actually, Phil's gotten back to me, so I'm not going to bore you with all the details on that. It's kind of questions about were things in the right place or whatever. I do have a couple of questions though that I in general I agree with Owen. I think on balance, if you look at the total picture, we're looking really good considering what's happened to the world in the last few months. But and Owen, I apologize for not asking this question earlier, but I didn't know where Phil couldn't tell me right away where those performance bonuses were booked out. And then when he got back to me and told me, I now have a secondary question on that. I see he says they're booked to 510 admin on line 11, which is labeled WC, and he said he would go in and correct that. I guess that's an older line. But I did notice we've spent $2,000 there, and I thought we had only approved 3 at 500, but my recollection could be wrong.
No, I mean, that's what's been approved.
And I don't understand why that's 2,000. I'm not expecting an answer tonight.
Well, yeah, and did we do any earlier in the year?
Oh, that's right. That extra 500 is that
Okay.
Brian was given an award last year. Chief Calderwood was given a performance award last year, and we somehow, for whatever reason, didn't pay it out until
Okay, good enough.
this year.
Good enough. And then I may have some more questions once, Phil finalizes things, but I'll leave it at that because I know we got a big agenda.
Okay, would you refresh me? I know why we under forecasted the state revenue, and that's a problem that won't occur again once we change the fiscal year. The same thing happened with the homestead exemption, and would you refresh me as to why that was?
So off the top of my head, I think it was because we were waiting to figure out what the legislature did, and there was not, the biggest warm fuzzy that they were going to do the increase to the homestead that they said they were going to.
So
And
we plugged in last year's number.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
On the safe side. And then we still didn't until they actually made the final decision. It was hard pinning down exactly.
Okay, are we going to get any more snowplow reimbursement, or is that going to roll to next year?
Nope, we're going to get that. We've billed them for that. We're just waiting for it. But that's again broken into 2 different installments.
And will all the ambulance and fire OIC wages be refunded
Yes.
by FEMA?
Unless
And that'll all
denied
happen.
by FEMA, but everything we've heard. I did hear one slight indication from a different town that somehow they, certain expenses that seem very COVID related might not be reimbursed. There is a difference between that town and us. We have an active ambulance service. So I don't know if that's a big difference, but I haven't heard any of the same indications the other person had. So
Okay.
we're still anticipating everything. The only questionable ones are some of the ones related to town meeting, like the porta potties and the additional technology. All that should be reimbursed. But if there's a question on allowability or acceptance or not, it's only kind of around those town meeting ones. Everything else is clearly PPE, sanitation, gear for the ambulance, gear for fire, etc.
Okay.
Walter,
But-
can I jump back
Sure.
to homestead for a minute? Not to be a downer, but one of the things I talked to Phil about was that number, the budget number of 80,000 didn't match our commitment number. When we calculated the commitment, the tax rate, we were anticipating 121,418 in homestead. So instead of being 22 to the good, we're actually almost that equal amount to the bad. So, and Phil, one of the things Phil was going to do was adjust those budget numbers based on the commitment. So I just, I wasn't gonna bring that up, but since you did, I wanted to make sure that the people realize that that's gonna have a different look when those budget numbers are corrected.
And just as a reminder from us on our end, you know, better understanding from us in this office about distinct times and then doing data entry to reflect. You know, I'd never really given Phil guidance that post commitment there needed to be alterations done based on some of those numbers. The guidance has always been take the budget, take these numbers and find the correlating lines within Trio and enter these budget numbers. And then based on if the budget's approved or not, we would go and change, you know, if they cut something or if something changed at town meeting, but we hadn't really done a post commitment adjustment. And so we can do that absolutely. But the numbers that we plugged into Trio that end up on these finances that you look at, those are the numbers from our budget process, not our commitment process. But for what we would do on the real estate taxes, that's one that we definitely understand. Property taxes can't be done until after the commitment, but we, you know, we've always taken a little bit of this is an assessor's job and the assessor's agent, and our job is this facilitator. And so we never really grasped that there needed to be additional changes at that time. We do now, and we'll make sure that we make that correction next year.
All right. Is that it for financials?
Last thing I'll say, thank you, John. And Jan and Walter, please nitpick, because, you know, we want to place the right things in the right spots. We manage a lot through this office, and so we make mistakes or we put things in possibly the wrong spot. So if it's raised to us, we will look into it and we will make corrections. So I really appreciate you all looking that over and assisting us with that.
Okay.
Just briefly, Owen, in the Reader's Digest, 10 words or less, when do you anticipate the FEMA reimbursement money? Or where are we at with that? 20 words.
I anticipate submission this week. Unsure when reimbursement hits. We'll check with Mindy to properly allocate based on years.
Okay, yeah, because that could get confusing if that cash comes in after the first.
I agree.
As I would expect that it would. Okay. Penny, Department Head, Library and Cemetery.
Good evening. I hope everything's okay, Walter.
Everything is fine.
Good.
Did you see all the
Well.
apparatus at my house?
Well, we saw it go by. And so I called the scanner friend to find out what was going on, and it didn't sound too serious. So
Turned out
I'm glad to hear it from you.
it was a scare, but it turned out fine.
Good. Well, I just wanted to let you know the Zoom classes, exercise classes are going very well. And library is still by appointment and open hours on Saturday for now. Many libraries in the state are going to curbside only, but with our low population, I think we're okay to continue as we are. And the only thing I wanted to run by the board, our newest library volunteer, Maureen Spencer, has gifted us a nice in the ground sign with a heavy angle iron thing that you pound in the ground that I would like to put near the road on Guilford Butler's lawn to advertise the book sale on Saturdays. But I didn't want to go do that without running it by the board.
This is a temporary sign?
Well, it's, you know, it's on a stake that you pound in the ground. So once we pound it in, it will be in the ground. I can change what it says.
I have no objection. I think we should check to make sure we don't need a permit.
Well, it's 30 by 40 inches.
Well, then we probably don't, but I'd hate for us to
I
violate,
can,
I'd hate for us to violate our own ordinances.
I will follow up on that.
Yeah, I concur with John. I have no objection as long as we're in compliance.
Nor do I. If it matters, just, you know that cases are up, Penny. We've
Yes,
gone,
I do. I'm watching very carefully.
okay.
But our residents seem to be watching also, and therefore traffic's been very low the past week or two.
The 10 of the most recent Sprucehead cases are in St. George, actually. I'm aware of those.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that was all I had. So thank you very much.
Well, you guys, you and your family have a Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays.
Thank you, and the same to you all.
Thanks, Penny.
Okay, new business, Conservation Commission.
So here's as close to a Reader's Digest version as I can find. We were approached. We've been working on Conservation Commission stuff. I gave wrong guidance, thought the select board could do it. We reorganized, started working towards an ordinance, would have done that, COVID, et cetera, just by way of doing some research for something else. We found that in the 1974 town meeting, there was the question about conservation commissions. That was so we could get the land and water conservation monies for the basketball and tennis courts. My understanding is after that, it kind of petered out near the end of the 70s, and by the 80s, it wasn't even meeting anymore. It's been dormant. John Spear wrote up an inquiry that was sent to MMA Legal. They basically said, if you really want to figure out if it's still on the books, you got to find that statute, figure out which amendment they reference. That statute's been repealed, it's been replaced. So it's like a whole research project to figure out what is actually on the books. And then there's the whole concept of, does it even make sense to continue to try to like redo something that was done over 30 years ago? So as far as I can tell, unless there's a very strong desire for us to track all this down to just figure out what our current authority for the Conservation Commission is, which would likely net that there are changes we want to do to that anyway, because it's very old language and maybe doesn't fit with us. There's really not much to do with the finding that we currently have one on the books. The only thing that I think really dictates is how we would word the article when we do ask the question of a conservation commission, and just wording it as a reconfirmation or a reapproval versus doing it for the first time. But we're likely still just going to have to go through that process of figuring out what we want to see out of these folks, authorities, powers, etc., budget, all that stuff. So I don't really see that anything has changed unless you really want us to put time into figuring out what is currently on the books, again, with likely us finding that it's not something that we currently want for the town.
John or Jan?
Yeah, I think we could just reestablish it. I think, as you know, I've already got it. Excuse me. I've already got a draft ordinance, which includes bylaws that I've just been sitting on as we sort through this. So I think we can just reestablish it under the current, section 30 AMRSA, section 3261.3, section 102, which is the new laws that govern Conservation Commission. So I don't think it's a problem. I think we can easily put together a warrant article that would reestablish it under that law. And I think we'd be ready to go.
Yeah, my only question was when you said we, I didn't know if you meant town meeting of the select board, but you just clarified it with your last sentence, so.
I think we need to take it to town meeting again, just to.
Yeah, I agree with those sentiments. I think 40 years is a long dormancy.
Right. And since the law has actually changed that governs it, I think it makes sense to take it to the town again.
Yeah, so I don't think we need to take any action at all on this item because that was our plan I don't think we're changing our plan at all. I did want to mention, Jan, that I have, I also am sitting on some review and comments that I made on the draft that you sent out. I think I told you that before. And I haven't been in a rush to get them to you because I knew we had quite a bit of time, or I thought we had quite a bit of time, but I will get those to you.
Okay.
Sometime.
Yeah,
So-
no, that's fine.
And
Again,
I don't think,
there's a
I don't think we need to take any action.
I agree. It just goes on the warrant in June.
Yep, agreed.
A lot of time to noodle it. Yes, Owen.
And the only thing that I'll add is for the folks that watch this that are part of the group that really wants to see a conservation commission, just a reminder that even though it's not been reestablished the way that the select board wants to see for the town, if there are important items that they want to see that are conservation commission-esque type things, they can just request it of the board or of me to be on the agenda so they can still function and move forward and do things, just not technically as a conservation commission under certain authorities and powers. So they can keep doing the great things they're doing. The fact that we're waiting for the next town meeting shouldn't hinder activities, just technicalities.
Okay. Okay. Maine Aquaculture Hub. That meeting is tomorrow. Is that right?
That meeting is tomorrow. It would be great if there was someone that was like, oh, I'm so interested, I want to be on it, I'll be your point person. Missing that meeting, I don't think is going to be the end of the world. Really, the point of raising it to you all is that, this is an organization, they provide good information. They would, make sure we have relevant current information and, to help us guide anything we want to do here as a town that does have aquaculture, sees expansion of aquaculture and new farms as a high potential for this area. So having someone that keeps up on it, that you can reference and can provide good input on changes, I just think was a good thing for you all to consider. And they're not going anywhere. So the fact that they might not make tomorrow's meeting is not a big deal, but looking
Have you
for
had any interest from the community in this? Being participant?
I haven't really broadcast it much. I didn't get it until recently. It was kind of a last minute agenda item type thing.
Okay, so you haven't had anybody come forward and saying, gee, I'd like to be involved?
Not explicitly, no.
I'd like to see us reach out to the fishing community. I know in the past there's been, I don't want to say conflicts, but there's been concerns about aquaculture versus,
Impact on the fishery.
fishing grounds and I don't know if maybe a call to the co-op or I'm not quite sure how to approach that, but I do think rather than necessarily appoint the first person who raises their hand, I would like to reach out to the fishing community to see if they have any interest.
Yeah, I think I briefly discussed this with Skip Connell and then didn't reconnect with him. And, he and Bob Baines and Casey Morrill and I think David Cousins has backed off a little. They're all plugged in very well to a lot of these state organizations. But I agree that we should reach out. And I think Casey's the head of the Fishermen's Co-op. So that's a kind of a logical place to go, is to say, if we're looking for interested representative, they'd come up with one. Yes, Owen.
Yeah, Casey's definitely locked in. Bob Bain, same thing. The only question that I would ask you all to think about is, would it make any difference whether or not the person you want to be that point person does have a permit for an aquaculture farm? Is there any potential conflict of interest there? It's a double-edged sword. These are the folks that know what's going on. They have a vested interest, et cetera, et cetera. Does it look bad that they get the most recent information and they're the ones possibly putting in another permit for another farm? That's the only thing that I could think.
Yeah, I think
All three people that I just mentioned have them.
I know.
I'm sorry, Jan, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I just think we're ahead of ourselves. I mean, as far as appointing someone, at this point, I think the town should have a representative, and I would support that. Personally, I have an interest in it, but unfortunately, I can't make a meeting tomorrow. But I think that there's a lot of potential in South Thomaston in the aquaculture area. But I agree reaching out to the fishermen in the area and see what interest we have. But I wouldn't support automatically appointing someone, as John said, just because they raise their hand.
Yeah,
And
I agree. Okay.
So can I ask who's going to reach out?
I'm drafting up, I just drafted up an email to Casey Morrill. He was last year's president of the co-op. There's a new president, but he's still very much invested. So I can just query him on it. I'll include the board, and I'll have the attachment from the aquaculture people and just say we're on the hunt for a good, appropriate person.
Okay, sounds good. Copy us on it.
Yes, sir.
All right. Access to areas within the town office. This is the key issue, or the that room down there, right?
Yep, big overview. It was primarily the fact that I didn't have a good answer when the question was raised, how do we get into that room? We did have a key. I had just spaced on the fact that we had it. I was reminded of that. I found the key. I made up some copies. I talked with Chief Calderwood about it. So the fire department is in possession of a key. The locked up key box is also going to have a copy of a key to get into that room. And then I have a third spare for some appropriate person to have in the future. So we currently have access to that space in the town office. Good. The question, as far as I see it, is, do you all want me to do more than that? Meaning, should we change out, reach out to Sargent Corporation? I need to do that anyway to get some additional keys made up. Do you want it changed out to be part of our bigger system, or is what we're doing now just fine?
Go ahead, Jim.
Well, I think this is part of a bigger issue, Owen. I'm not sure that we have good key control for the town as it is. In other words, if somebody has a key, have they signed for that key? Do we know they have it? I believe that every key to any town space should be available at the town office. If it's a controlled space, maybe it's in a sealed envelope. I go back to my military days, the sealed envelope that's only ripped open when you have to open it in an emergency, and somebody signs that they've opened it. Otherwise, it stays in a locked box. Those keys that, like, the fire department needs to get to an emergency, or you need to get to if there's a leak in the basement, that sort of thing, those should be in a key control box in the town office. But in one of your emails, I saw you say, have duplicate keys made and let the department heads give them out to other people. I want to be real careful about doing that, because that's when we end up having to replace locks, because we end up not knowing who has a key. So I think what we really need to back up is kind of a key control policy for the town office, how we're going to manage keys, where we're going to store them, who's going to have access to them, and those that do, they sign for that key. When they leave the job or they leave the town employment, they turn that key in. It's kind of a turn-in item, or it's an issued item, as we would call it, when they get the job. So I guess I'd like us to take this slow and think about a policy, key control policy, if we will.
On that, so this key that I have, it's got a little code on the back. It's the same key that all the board members have. It's the AA key, and it gets you access to all of the locks that we've keyed this way.
That's a master key.
Yes, and then there's AB and AC keys, and they give you limited or expanded access.
Right.
That system, we have an Excel spreadsheet, and they have a unique serial number on it. And when we issue that key to anyone, like I did with Anna, our new employee, I logged the date that was given, what code is on it, and then what unique number associated with that. And then when someone leaves employment, they turn that in and it gets cataloged that way. I will say that I haven't done an exhaustive vetting of that system, because I've only altered it slightly in the 2 years that I've been here. But I will say that some light cursory that is not the most up to date. The exchanges of keys or replacement happened at one point in time, and a couple of people might say that they have the same key as me. I haven't gone through and tried to verify all of that and see how current that is. So that relates to these keys. All of the other keys that are not part of that effort that was done 4 or 5 years ago, those are primarily in the lockbox. We have copies of everything in that lockbox. There is no control on did someone access that or not. For example, the vault downstairs that's in the lockbox, you go in there, you grab it, you go get what you need at the vault, and you put it back there. Same for some of the other things around town. Other than the labeling of the actual key itself in the lockbox, we don't have a good system for those other non-sergeant, master key type things. So I agree with you. There is improvements that can be done around that. We do have the basic, good, decent structure for our sergeant stuff, but yeah, the random keys that we have.
I don't want to over-engineer it either. I'm not trying to make this too complicated, but I don't think that, and you just kind of confirmed my suspicion. I don't really think we know if we have every keys to everything that we need. Are they labeled in the box? Do we know who accesses them? You just said somebody goes in and takes the key. Okay, who's that? Anybody? Who controls the access to the key locker? That sort of thing.
You have to have a key to get in that room.
Yeah. And
So
do we know who has keys to get in that room?
I think it's an AA key. I could be wrong. So.
Yeah, and theoretically, who has access to that room is in the spreadsheet that we have for those other. And I would say that like that spreadsheet is probably 75%, maybe greater accuracy. But I do think that there are some discrepancies within that. The full extent, I'm just not sure.
Okay.
So whatever work we do here, please, the people that I think most often access things off hours especially are Brian, Amy, and David. So make sure that that their voices are heard here. And if the starting point is that you think that 75% of the AA keys are accounted for, let's close the gap on that as the first item.
Yep. So the process I'm going to take with that is just sending something out to department heads and saying, please pick up I'll figure out some sort of process for that. But the tentacles of where these keys might be, I'm just not sure. Because someone remind me, when was this established? Because I did some vetting of that, and I found some errors, but there's a lot of people on that list, and those keys were moved around. And really, since I've been here, for the 2 years I've been here, I think that we've issued and taken in like 3 or 4 keys have been exchanged, and I change them in the Excel spreadsheet, but I don't really know what to do on all the things that happened before me, other than reach out to department heads.
I don't think I want you to send anything to department heads. I think the first thing is, let's take a look at the sheet you think you have, and let's look at the accuracy of that. Let's do an inventory of what we think we have. If we say we have X number of AA keys, and we think that these people have them, then let's go out and target those people and say, okay, do you have an AA key? If so, we need to verify that it's the number we think it is. Let's start there till we get a control of what we know. We don't know what we don't know, I guess is my point on this. And then I think we should write like maybe just a 1-page, just a key control policy of how we're going to manage keys. Who's going to duplicate them? Who's going to have the key on their body or in their office, and who's going to have to come to the key control box to get the key. That understanding, I think, needs to take place. And that's where, certainly Brian and Amy and those people that use those keys regularly need to have an input to that, so that we know what keys Brian's responsible for as the chief, Amy is the ambulance director. And I'm talking even things like truck keys, fire trucks, ambulance keys, because again, this came up particularly when we had the big turnover in the ambulance. That's when for me, I came to the realization is we had no idea who had keys to our old ambulance or keys to the space. So I just, I mean, this is just my thoughts. But my input is I'd like to just sort of take a round turn on it and start with what we think we know, an inventory of what we have, and verify that, and then start asking, okay, do you have keys that we don't know about?
Yeah, and just, I'm looking at it right now. Just under fire department, there's roughly 40 names that are listed of having keys. Some of them, they've got codes and says that it was lost. I'm looking at 15 different Lions people. I'm looking at 20 different ambulance people, and I'm looking at 25, maybe 30 that have access to the master key. So it's just that was the reason of possibly incorporating the department head sooner rather than later, because I can try to contact the 40 people on the fire department, but I just think that might be done better through the chief. But however you all want to do it is fine by me.
I don't think we're gonna solve this larger problem tonight. My concern in the short term is that the people that are in that building the most, that's the you and the 2 office staffs, the people that are staffing the ambulance and the fire department people know where the key is to get into that room. That's all I was interested in initially.
Yep. I understand.
And because when I went up there, I didn't know how to get in there, and now I do. But I just want to make sure that Brian and his people do, because I mean, David might be there, but Brian might not be, and whatever. So, and particularly the ambulance people, because they're there a lot. So, anyways, that was my concern. But also, I don't want to overlook the issue that started this. I'm kind of curious what's going on with the water pressure. What steps are you taking? That's what brought this all up to begin with.
Yeah, I haven't really done much about the water pressure. Well, like you and I talked today, John.
Yeah.
I don't know what to provide for guidance, and the first thing would just be to reach out to Haskell and have them come do an evaluation and figure out if this is an internal to the building issue. Is this a drought issue? Is this a well issue and we need to drill and frack to expand what we do? Are we getting cloggage? So
Well, assuming it's still a problem, I mean, I think we need to, that was the original base problem here.
Yep. So I'll reach out to Haskell. I don't think that they're going to bill us just to do an evaluation. So I'll reach out to Haskell.
I would support that.
Do we understand what the problem is? I mean,
I don't think we do, other than.
You say water pressure. When do we lose water pressure? Is it down all the time? Is it down at certain periods? I mean,
Me or Brian?
Yeah, I mean, my observations, sometimes like a faucet will be a little slow. I think Brian saw it more noticeably, and where the fire department will use water in greater quantities when they use it than just us washing our hands. Brian could definitely provide input on that.
Brian's the one who raised this.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. So the issue with the water pressure, it's not so much on I'll call it the old style or the town office side of the building. The pressure on that side of the building's like it's always been since I've ever been there. The new side in the bathroom, there you can get more there's more pressure in the town office bathroom off the sink than there is in the brand new bathroom. Then what was starting to happen during the summer, and it's been more often this summer than it was the years past, that we used to be able to top off a tank on a fire truck and never have any issues of conflicting of the water pressure. Now, if you're running the garden hose and you run the sink or flush the toilet in the new bathroom, you lose all the water pressure. We go to discoloration. We used to have better water pressure when we were rinsing or washing fire trucks or the ambulance. Now it's just not as what it used to be. So all I'm saying, it's just something to look into. It is what it is. The fire department's going to adapt, overcome. We'll make it work until we can fix it or whatever. So.
Sorry, not to sidetrack, but Walter, do you keep trying to log in separately?
Yeah, because I'm trying to get on my other platform.
Okay, and I just don't, if there was another random Walter Wright's Zoom bombing, I just didn't, do you want me to let you in?
You know what? No, but
Okay.
I'm having a periodic poor connection, so bear with me.
So what I'll do is tomorrow I'll reach out to Haskell. I'll just see what we're dealing with as far as inspection of the overall system. And then they can let us know if there's some sort of cloggage that in a filter needs to be changed out, or if it's actually our well itself coupled with dry weather, but it's been wet pretty recently. But I've seen some pretty good results when they do the hydrofracking as far as gallons per minute. And then you can always go down a little bit deeper and make your reservoir bigger as well. I've done that at different properties. It's not rocket science.
Okay. All right. Have we drained that sufficiently?
No pun intended.
Always. Okay, carry forward options.
No, land and water conservation.
Oh, okay.
So brief overview of that, you know, again, we did the basketball and tennis courts back in the 70s. They've held up good. We wanted to repurpose them.
Rather than go into this in great detail, since we're going to do something about it on Thursday.
Yep.
Is the current situation that we cannot do the project that we funded in 2020?
The current thing is we can do the project that the town funded and we submitted an application for. The people that we submitted the application to liked a lot of the stuff and actually preferred and really wanted to see the things that we described in phase 2 that we would apply and ask for money from the town from in the future, that would do site conditions, expand, you know, parking, lighting and all that. They really wanted to see those things done in addition to the resurfacing. And so what they're saying is there's a little bit of an operational pause. Can you work with us on expanding what you're doing? Because we really would like to fund these additional things that you mentioned.
Okay, so, but what if we didn't want to do that? Can we do what we had planned? Or is there a roadblock there?
I'm not entirely sure. I'll let Doug say that. He said that they said yes, but they just want to see about some of the other things as well. But we will not be able to get it done this year.
I know that.
The funding also got delayed. I'm sure you saw that in the email, the federal monies. So there is a built-in delay that gives us time and works well in our favor if we wanted to do all of the things that we thought were good and actually potentially be more thoughtful about what we want to see there.
Yeah, more thoughtful is also more expensive. So I want to zero in on the town approved $10,000 to resurface the tennis courts, and we applied for a grant to get us to the $20,000 that we needed. So now the funding won't come until March, perhaps, right? That's what I read. So that $10,000 unspent will roll to surplus. And if the budget makers and budget committee decide that they want to do the $10,000, $20,000 project, then they would take that surplus and apply it back to that line item in the 2021 18-month budget. Doing more is a separate set of issues that we're not going to solve or deal with tonight. So I just wanted the answer on the question of the $10,000. As it stands right now, it's not committed to anything. It's not bound by a contract or a purchase order or anything like that, right? I'm waiting for you in the right place here.
You're talking about the $10,000 that the town approved now, not
The $10,000 that was in the recreation department budget that was
town money, not obligated anywhere.
right. Okay, so that's gonna roll to undesignated funds on January 1st or December 31st.
Unless we take some action to not have it do that.
Right.
Yeah, well, right.
which actually,
Again,
if,
say that again, John?
even if
Which-
you wanted to just do just the resurfacing, you're still going to need to take some action, like John was saying, to hold it, because we're not going to be able to expend that this year.
No, what Walter's saying was we could just close it to surplus and then take it back out of surplus again in next year's budget. That's one option. The other option is we could take some action to set that aside, for lack of a better word. But that's the next agenda item.
Right. Right. I just wanted to get straight between
Yeah.
the project that we funded, which had some substance to it, and the dreams and schemes about moving the gate and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
That-
All
That's not a December 15th, 2020 discussion as far as I'm concerned.
Nope.
It is a budget process. It's a process of discussion of priorities and needs and wants that will impact 2021. Now, you guys may disagree, but
I agree, particularly since we have this meeting tomorrow, a Thursday, to kind of, I think we need to get more information.
right, do you want to go or do you want to go to that, John, or do you want me to go?
I will, but I mean, if you want to go, I mean, I'll defer. It's up-
Oh, I'll flip you for it.
I mean, I am interested, but if you want to do it, I'm, you know,
Well, okay, we can talk about that offline. It's just that we both can't go, obviously.
right.
Okay. All right. So item E. Carry forward items.
So this got far more complicated today, when I received communication back from MMA Legal. It was slightly different than what, Walter, you had kind of related based on your conversation with a different attorney at MMA Legal. The attorney I talked to was able to look over all of our history, so saw which attorney you talked to. She liaisoned with that individual. And I guess if there's a difference between the guidance they were giving, was the attorney you talked to was giving general guidance, and the attorney that I talked to really wanted to understand the unique circumstances around the items of which we were considering to hold or carry forward or encumber or non-lapse, or however the term for what the appropriate mechanism is. And so town meeting, what was approved at town meeting, what is our agreement with Northern Borders? If we're talking about Island Road stuff, where are we with Land and Water Conservation? Because the only two that, from my opinion anyway, that would even be considered for holding and not lapsing into surplus would be the money set aside for the Island Road project and the money set aside for the resurfacing. We had some good back and forth. I was hopeful that it would be quick and I could get you all really good, solid guidance. It became really complicated, and she wants to see a lot more information before writing her memo up. If someone has better information and feels very comfortable, I don't really think that people are going to scrutinize this significantly. I don't have great guidance to give you, and talking it out with her, it wasn't a back and forth on the legalese of it. It was question and answer on our process, question and answer on what happened when, who are our agreements with, how did these monies get to exactly where they're at, and who are they committed to? I really wanted to be able to give some better guidance.
I thought the guidance I got from them was pretty straightforward.
And I'll tell you, your guidance made a lot more sense, Walter, than how complicated it got with me. I generally agree with the guidance that you recounted, and I don't think that it's abnormal for us to consider doing something like this. And I don't know how it got so very confused with the other attorney.
Yeah, well, and what the attorney told me, looked exactly like the policy that Rockport has, which is if you have a contract, if you have funds that are tied to a contract, a PO or otherwise binding, that you can carry those over. But if you have an amorphous line item, like a budget line item, you can't. So I thought that was pretty straightforward, but
I don't
maybe
know.
maybe I just heard what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, one big thing that sets us apart from some of those other larger towns is the charter. And we don't have a charter. And a lot of times when those towns do the charter, they spell out a lot of additional things that don't normally exist for non-charter towns.
Okay. All right. So John, do you have an action? I'm sorry, Jan, go ahead.
Just going to say, I noticed in that Rockport encumbrance policy that you sent us that they reference their charter. Town of Rockport charter. Is the first.
Yes, they do. Yeah. Do you have an action in mind, John?
Well, yeah, I have some thoughts, and then typically we have not, at least in the history that I've been there, carried forward funds, but we have done it, and it was done recently. You folks did it recently with the, lack of a better word, the transfer money, and with the Island Road project, although we don't have any construction contracts, we do have some commitments there. I mean, we spent money there, obviously. So I guess, and because of the circumstances that surround that project and all the COVID issues and our inability to call special town meetings, I guess I'm in favor of voting to carry that forward, the 91,000. Doesn't mean we have to spend it, but it does set it aside there. Because some of that is committed, for lack of a better word, to Gartley and Dorsey. I guess I don't feel as strongly about the tennis courts, but I wouldn't be opposed, given the circumstances, of carrying forward both of those. I think it's just a matter of setting it aside having the auditor set it aside as an assigned fund balance, and then at some point, if we don't use all of it or some of it, we can just have her close it out to surplus. I guess in general, I'm not in favor of carrying little pockets of money, $200 here, $300 there, because I think you kind of lose track of it. But something of this significance, I guess I could support that.
Jan?
I agree, John. Absolutely the same thing. I think those are two projects that we would serve the town well to carry those forward.
Is it necessary for the motion to be the total 91,000 for the Island Road project, given that 46,000 of that, or 45,000, are coming from reserves? And unless I've got this wrong, because that funding from the reserves will be used for the purpose for which the reserves were created, namely paving, that we can just leave those in that reserve, and this body can release them at any time that the project starts up or needs to be paved. Now, the problem with that is, if we're going to fund the paving reserve next year, we get into the can we draw from it and fund it at the same time without a special town meeting like we did with the ambulance thing? Owen?
So I'll just say that if that's the route that you're going to go, I don't know what that necessarily means for Northern Borders, because it could feel, or someone might argue, that all of a sudden we have gone back on our commitment because we have diverted those monies back. We have paid out an invoice to Gartley and Dorsey, and we're waiting for a reimbursement from Northern Borders at this time. And so if there was a motion, what I would do is I would have it be non-specific to a dollar amount, but have the motion read that all remaining funds, approved for the purpose of matching monies from the town for the Island Road project, be held for continued utilization for the Island Road project, or something to that effect, but not do a specific dollar amount, but just say all remaining funds of those monies be held. And that was that was one of the few concerns that I have. If we let it lapse and go someplace else, does that mean we have withdrawn our support and our commitment for those funds? And how is that going to be viewed by our grantor?
Well, but they were never anywhere other than that anyway.
Well, they got
Reserve fund
drawn
were
out.
always in reserve.
Yeah, but they got drawn out from that reserve as part of the budget process. So they were
No,
proposed.
no, they didn't.
Well, but the town my inclination is to go with the balance of the 91,000 because the town already gave us permission to draw out of the reserve. And I agree with you, Walter, that under the law, the selectmen can draw out of reserve funds, or the town council, or whatever it is, if it's used for the purpose it was set aside, but that has generally not been our practice here. So I think it's cleaner personally.
Okay. All right.
I would make a motion that we carry forward as an assigned fund balance, the balance of the $91,000 that remains on December 31st.
I second that motion.
It's been moved and second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, I would just add that Owen brings up a good point. I wasn't thinking about the impact on the grant, but I think that's important. But I also, your point about being able to fund the reserve account in this year's budget, which is what we have alternatively done. We've spent the money one year, we funded it in another. So my fear is if we don't leave it out of the reserve fund, obligated toward the 91, that we would not be able to fund that money this year in the paving reserve. So I think I agree with John. It's much cleaner the way we're doing it. I'd like to see that whole remainder of the 91 set aside.
Okay.
And of course, the important thing is the auditor needs to be made aware that we did this.
Yeah. So from that standpoint, does the entire balance of those funds go? They don't stay where they are, which are in three places, actually. They're in the budget line item.
Yeah, they would just be in an assigned fund balance, like the
They're
10,000.
in the paving service. They all become an assigned item like we did with the transfer station.
Right, and she also did that with the $10,000 you got from the Island Institute. From the previous.
Oh, yeah, we did that.
And that one was a little,
yeah.
that one was a little cleaner. The Island Institute one was cleaner because it was not a tax appropriation, and it was
Right.
basically spelled out in the grant agreement what it was for. And so Mindy did that automatically.
Yeah.
Just before you all vote,
So
I just
it has to be-
want to make sure I have the motion correct. So John moved to carry forward as an assigned fund, or as assigned funds, the balance of the 91,000 approved at town meeting for the Island Road project that remain as of December 1st, 2020. Or sorry, December 31st, 2020. Is that generally good?
Close enough.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye in your name.
Aye. Aye.
Aye, right. All right.
I
Go ahead.
move we carry forward the $10,000 that was raised at the town meeting for a match for the tennis court paving as an assigned fund balance.
I second the motion.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Pretty straightforward. Oops.
I think we lost Walter.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Yes, but you're breaking up a lot.
I think we're ready to vote. If there's no further discussion.
Okay, all in favor?
Audio
Aye,
off.
Stan?
I write.
You're breaking up
Yeah.
a lot, Walter.
Yeah, I know this is, like I said, I'm on the,
Yeah, just to let you,
suboptimal platform. So how about if I turn this over to one of you?
John was doing
Do,
it before.
Okay, yeah.
all right, I'll try. Okay, where are we? We're on review.
F.
Yeah. Yes, right. F, discussion and review of timelines regarding the fiscal year change. And also budgetary process and department head guidance. On the financial year change, an 18th month transitional budget, I don't know if you all got it, but I sent out a revised timeline to Owen, Walter, and Jan that I took the liberty to update as a draft.
Got it.
Can we agree that that's we can start from working on that as a starting point, or?
Yep.
Because I took out obviously some of the stuff that we didn't end up doing with the special town meeting. So comments, concerns, people feel we need to flesh this out more. I'll hit you a couple of the key points. My thinking was that the budget, we would sit down with the budget committee in late March, mid to late March, excuse me, finalize the budget in mid to late March, sit down with the budget committee in early April. I guess that's kind of a key point. Does that work for folks time-wise? And
Yep. It's good for me, John.
okay, I didn't hear any response from anybody.
Walter remember how I said earlier he was, and should I let the other Walter in? So he's, I think, trying to figure out which of his two devices would give him better connection.
Okay. Owen, did you have a chance to look at this at all, or?
I mean, generally for me, the biggest thing has always been getting guidance to department heads on when to start, like, when do you all expect them to have a draft budget? And so February makes sense to me. And the timeline is very similar to how we've been doing it. The only kind of caution would be, this is not a normal typical year. This is going to be a more difficult budget process because of the evaluation for the extra 6 months. So just building in an additional, scratch our heads, keep meeting, do arithmetic and evaluate expenses is just, I think, really smart. So I like this because everything's been moved back 3 months basically, but we start the budget process only 2 months later than we would. So that kind of gives us that extra month.
Yeah. So yeah, I probably should have touched on that. The department heads and the town administrator and I guess the select board kind of, the vision is that in February, and again, this isn't fleshed out with specific dates yet, but in February would start, putting together and finalizing the budgets through February, perhaps even into early March. And of course, appointments would all carry over to June. So I don't know where to go if I don't hear feedback, but I guess if I don't hear feedback, we're good to go. We can always adjust this on the fly as well. So, Owen, I'm not sure what is meant by the next item, budgetary process and department head guidance.
That was it. I mean, like I just said, the biggest, most important thing for me was the board communicating to the department heads when they expect a draft budget to be ready to meet with the board and go over. That will really help them manage time and start working with us and all that. So just that was my big, that's why I kind of always kept putting that on there. When do you expect it? And then they can start working towards that goal.
Okay. I know when I was on the board in the past, we used to set a sort of wage COLA. Is that something that we traditionally have been still doing, or
Oh, what set of what?
like a wage COLA, a cost of living adjustment or something? Is that something we've gotten away from, or?
No,
There's
no,
memos. The board will provide a memo and it kind of talks about what the board wants to see as increases. And that's the general guidance given but Jan and Walter, please expand.
nope, that's what we do.
Okay, is that something we want to talk about tonight, or was that for a future meeting?
Yeah,
Go
I think
ahead.
we've got some time on it.
Dan?
I think we've got some time on that. We usually get our data from the Department of Labor as far as the increase, cost of living increase. And I don't know if that number's out yet. But yeah, I think we've got some room on that.
And there's a lot of other items like equipment items, operational things that don't really get covered in the guidance from what I've seen. And so there is a lot of work that department heads can be doing on their budget, void of the guidance. And as long as they know, generally speaking, that it's going to be the same as last year, they'll know what items you all speak to. And then they can just try to, prep those a little bit, wait for your guidance. But, a wrench is a wrench is a wrench, but a cost per hour is and an increase on that is different.
Okay. And I know Brian and Amy are on here, the two largest budgets in town in terms of complexity anyways. I'm just curious if they have any questions or thoughts, or are they even up to, I believe they're both aware that we changed the fiscal year and it'll delay the process. Well, I see Amy's not here anymore. Sorry. Brian, you're aware of that, correct? Okay. Okay. Are we ready to move on?
I have a question.
Brian?
In regards to what you're just saying, because January 1st, the minimum wage goes up. So we're gonna do a payroll prior to, I remember how the quarters run, roughly in March, before we even sit down and discuss budgets. So would it be, do I keep my pay the way it is right now, or do I make that change because of, at least for the minimum wage aspects?
Do we have people making minimum wage?
Yes, I do.
Oh, well, I don't think we have much choice but to comply with the law.
Okay, I just didn't,
Owen, you have something to add to that?
Yeah, so the way that we've done it is for those interim months where an increase is proposed in pay, but has not been approved by town meeting, we will pay them what was last year's pay until approved at town meeting, and then we'll retroactively pay for that difference. The exception has been when we had an employee after the new law change, that employee's pay was below the minimum wage. We did not wait for town meeting approval. We upped that employee's pay. We followed the law, and we will do the same for everyone. And then increases above that approved at town meeting will retroactive once we get confirmation from the town.
Yeah,
All right,
that's
thank
what
you.
I just said. We have to comply with that, so.
Yep.
thank you.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna move on then, if there's nothing else. On that subject, review and approval of personnel policy as it relates to the dental change that we approved, at dental insurance that we approved at the last town meeting. I think I sent out a draft with the proposed changes. If people are happy with that, I'd take a motion to approve that. Anybody?
Well,
I'm not allowed to.
No,
Okay.
I know you. I didn't mean anybody. I meant Walter again.
I guess I'm not certain here.
Okay,
What I got was three things that you sent out.
that,
One was your draft changes to the dental insurance. And I have no problems with that. And that was in a track change document.
are you talking about something that Owen sent out or I sent out?
I guess Owen sent out 3 different attachments regarding personnel policy.
Yeah,
One of
I'm
them
only,
has to do with-
I'm only talking about the dental at this point in time.
Okay, but we're not going to make changes to the personnel policy. That's incrementally, are we? I mean, we've got that. We've got these healthcare buyouts. We've got now the new law regarding leave. So we're going to see a significant amendment to the personnel policy. And I guess I'd like to see all of them done at the same time.
I guess that's a question. If Owen doesn't feel that MMA requires us to change the policy before January 1st, I'm okay with delaying it. If he feels that we need that change to submit to MMA, then I think we need to go ahead and do that, even if it means incrementally. My understanding is the payment, the in lieu of payment's already been approved.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to read Walter's text messages about him trying to get on as well. I think that MMA would want to see that the dental that we've offered was changed in our policy before January 1st. I say that not feeling 100% confident, but that's definitely erring on the side of caution. I understand exactly what you're saying, sir, about not wanting to have, umpteen revision dates and changing small items here and there. But with this one specifically, due to the open enrollment, I do think that change would be appropriate. And then anything else can kind of be a more thoughtful, longer process and really try to, change bigger things that you want to change or take care of a lot of stuff. I don't actually know if that leave law would compel us to change our personnel policy. It's going to be kind of automatic within TRIO if TRIO does it right. So I'm not sure if that one is necessarily a change in the personnel policy, but I can't say for certain that not approving this change for the dental would derail anything. But erring on the side of caution, I think that change would be appropriate tonight.
Yeah, what about the other question I asked? I said, my understanding was the change on the in lieu of payments has already been made.
I guess I don't understand your question.
Well, Jan said, we're not going to act on that. We got other things to act on, including the change on the in lieu of policy that you sent out. My understanding is that was approved. That's already been approved. Is that not is my understanding incorrect?
What is the in lieu of policy?
Oh, the insurance.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that was done in February. And I think maybe where I might have confused Jan was I never made the change in the history record book. We keep a history. And so that's the documents that I sent out. I had not made that change and noted that in the history. And so that's the only reason that kind of some of that health insurance buyout stuff even came up, is I just wanted to recognize that I hadn't done that, but I have made that change in the history amendments to the personnel policy.
Okay. I questioned it, Owen, because I don't recall approving that policy in February. I recall discussing it. And the reason I challenge it is because we've got in there some numbers, like in paragraph F, it says based on $1,005 for 2008.
Mm-hmm.
I remember specifically saying, well, why would we use 2008 since it's, it's a long time ago. What does, why would that even be in there?
So
You
I,
gotta have something more current than 2008 in there.
sure, that reminds me of some of the stuff that we have in our cemetery items as well, meaning we reference a year and we reference an amount, but then there's a mechanism that has that amount continue to grow and keep up and makes us not have to change our policies every year to have a current amount in there. I say that.
But we are amending this policy. And
Right.
I remember at the time asking, well, why can't we update that and put a more current dollar amount
Mhm.
instead of something that's from, so
Can I ask a question? Were we doing YouTubes in February?
No.
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, never mind.
I guess I just don't recall ever seeing a smooth version of this until recently when you sent these out on the buyout policy. And again, Walter, I asked you to speak up too. It was Walter and Cheryl and I at the time. I do remember talking about it. And oh, by the way, there was even more than the buyout policy in your recommended amendment, if I recall. It had other things in there. And if I'm not mistaken, the document that you made your amendments to wasn't even the current version of the personnel policy. I mean, I got to go back literally and pull those things out. But, we started with the not the most recent version of the personnel policy, made amendments to that for the buyout section. And then, I had some questions during the amendment piece, and I just don't remember seeing an approved version that said, okay, this is the amendment, how we want to do it, and let's vote on it. And again, I could be wrong, but
I mean, it sounds characteristic of Owen to have possibly not provided you with the smoothest copy. I'm looking at the February 18th, 2020 meeting minutes.
Yep.
And it says item D, consideration of changes to personnel policy. Changes to the town personnel policy were discussed. Waterman moved and Gaudio seconded a motion to approve the personnel policy changes as presented. Motion passed 3-0. And I'm not saying that you're wrong, sir, because I mean, it would make sense to maybe update that number that you're referencing. But that's what I've go.
Do the minutes have what was presented? You say it was approved what was presented. Did you?
No, I mean,
did you put an attachment with the minutes of what was presented?
No.
That's what I question. Obviously there was a motion and amendment, but I just don't know what we approved.
Is my audio working?
Hey, it is now. I think in one of those other documents that I sent, the one, that had the history, I believe I also sent my track changes that I had suggested that was the policy amendment as presented.
Mm-hmm.
And the language was basically identical in the two different paragraphs to where the health benefits buyout was discussed. And possibly, and again, I'm trying to reach back into my brain and remember properly, but possibly what you're mentioning, sir, is that there has been a desire to continue to look at the personnel policy and bring a lot of these items up to snuff in a big push like you've talked about. And maybe it was one of those catalog it for the next time we do a major review of the personnel policy and see what changes we want to do. And that was just a mental note. I'm not sure.
So what we approved, and as my recollection, was the buyout, the change to the buyout from once a year to whatever the period was. And that everything else was tabled for future discussion because it was too big and we didn't get our arms around it at the time.
Okay, so that jives with Owen's recollection. I, of course, wasn't there, so I don't have a recollection. So may I suggest I feel like we got two different balls in the air here. One is the narrow question of the dental amendment. I kind of agree with Owen. I would rather err on the side of caution and make sure that we approve this so we don't mess up our employees. So I would request a motion for the approval of that. And before I actually, before I do that, it was my understanding here, we were talking simply about the employee, not family, once you get past the 5-year on the dental, and that's the way it's written. I was not under the impression that we approved after 5 years that you could bring the family on at 80% for the dental is, and I just want to make sure.
Well, I would say that that would be resolved by reading the language around when, after 5 years of employment, you're brought onto the policy. If you're brought onto the policy, you're brought onto the policy. I don't think that it specifies which aspects of the policy, but there's a section that references, I just don't have it up right in front of me.
Yeah, I know, but that's for the
James
health
looking
insurance.
at it.
We're talking about dental insurance here, and I specifically,
Right, but remember, they're all part of the policy. They're all part of the health benefits package. What the town hasn't been doing is covering any of the premium costs for that dental aspect of the health policy.
okay, then this language is not going to work then, but that was not what I voted for.
Right, you specifically excluded the, we've did the very narrow step forward, if you will.
Right.
Um,
I'm not sure we were 100% clear about that, but that's what, in my mind, I was voting for. Now, that's why I bring this up, because I don't want some confusion after the fact.
I think you made it very clear at the time, John, what you were for and what was left for later.
Okay, because the numbers we talked about were all around the single subscriber plan.
Exactly.
And I'm just trying to see if I can find.
This is a separate plan. This is with Delta Dental. It's not with Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield. Well, anyways, that's what the three of us, Jan, you haven't commented. Is that what your impression was as well, or?
Yes, it was, that we were not going to include the family. I
Okay.
have no problem with your language, other than the fact I think there's still a lot of errors up above in that, paragraph F and H. But as far as the dental insurance change is, I'm okay with what you've got written.
Yeah, I didn't look at F and H.
Right, I know you didn't.
Okay, and I have issues too. I don't want. I paid, didn't, I found,
You're breaking up, John.
Yeah, we
the
didn't.
copy
hear-
that I was given when I was hired, that I assume is what's being passed out to new employees, is different than the electronic copy that I got more recently for Owen. I went through 2 pages of bouncing one another.
So this is not me.
No, it's
No. So just so you know, Article 12 under the personnel policy, health insurance, item D reads, the town will pay 80% of the family subscriber health insurance premium after 5 years of service for full-time employees.
right.
That's well,
I'm sorry, John, we're having trouble hearing you. And I don't bring that up as some sort of confrontational debate. It was more just that this is the line that speaks to what changes after 5 years. And so I just want you to understand that that's how that goes. What's going on? We're like losing everyone here. So Walter, can you hear me?
I can, yeah, you can have you have my audio, but for some reason, my camera's not working.
It's just you now. I will say, I mean, I know that John and Jan live somewhat close to each other. I don't know if there's something weird going on because both of them dropped off. Anyone know any good jokes? So yeah, I mean, there is this thing that it's pretty basic and doesn't go into any sort of description, differentiating aspects of the health insurance. It just says town will pay 80% of the family subscriber health insurance premium. Oh, so maybe, no, you know what? That actually kind of does, because the health insurance premium is what we've been paying. And then below that health insurance premium, there are other premiums for items that are offered. And we've chose not to fund any of those other premiums. And so, yeah, I think that you would have to do additional language changes
To incorporate dental.
to incorporate the dental in either the section that talks about the 5-year or the dental section itself. But if you don't change, if you just talk about we will cover 80% of dental, then that should constrain it to not being rolled into, I don't know. I mean, it's not so much like I don't understand nuanced language. I don't understand nuanced health and benefits packages to a degree to know whether health insurance premium is to a very specific parent item and that the little children of vision and dental and whatever else are completely separate, or if it cascades through. I mean, the way that this reads, it's just the health insurance premium, which you could kind of interpret in different ways if you knew more about health insurance policies.
Well, what I think we wanted to do before the enrollment period was take care of add the dental plan for our current employees.
Absolutely. And that one employee that we have that's getting close to the 5 years won't hit it until the end of next year. It will be within the upcoming budget. But there's still time before they hit 5 years and there's even any sort of consideration of what his spouse would have for options.
Okay. Are those guys showing up in the waiting room yet?
No. Let me, I'm going to mute myself real quick.
Glad to see it's not me. I used to think I was the best techie I knew until tonight.
I'm giving them a call to see if they can maybe let me know if it's a power outage or.
Hello?
Hey.
Wow.
So John thinks that there might be something going on with the connection down to the island. I'm just going to check in with Jan real quick. I'm thinking over some options. Give me just a minute to liaison with Jan and we'll see where we stand. Thank you all. Our apologies for the technical difficulties.
Hey, Walter. I was thinking I could put John on my cell speakerphone and hold him up to my iPad speaker, and Owen could get Jan on his phone. And you might be able to continue the meeting. You're on mute.
There we go. Yeah, let's see what Jan has to say.
Well, I'm getting lots of books logged in. This is good. Shall I try to call John?
Yeah, just looking to see what CMP has to say. And they don't say anything. There are no outages in Knox County,
Well,
which
and
is
I
not
don't,
to say that that maybe those guys are probably on cable, all right, for their internet.
yeah, I don't think it's a power thing. I think it's an internet thing. So neither of them are having luck getting back on.
Owen, what if you get Jan by phone and I get John by phone and we put their audios on our own feeds?
We can do that. I think we just lost Walter too.
That
Okay,
looks that way.
so well here's one of the technicalities. When there is no quorum or when things are confused like this, I'm the clerk of the town, and barring interference from either of the members. Oh, hang on, I'm getting a call.
I think it's pretty clear that we have. Are you on the phone, Owen?
Owen's on the
I am
phone.
on the phone. Give me just 1 minute, please.
And Walter, you are
Okay.
kind of, your voice is kind of in and out also.
Walter, can you hear me? Walter? So, John said
Yep.
that so John said that his wife got a text.
Can you hear
that-
me?
I can hear you, yep. So John got a text, his wife got a text saying that Spectrum notified them that internet is out and is projected to be back on by 10 p.m. What was discussed was potentially me as clerk, now that you no longer have a quorum. It becomes my meeting, and I could potentially adjourn this meeting. And then I would reopen this meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to continue this discussion, considering the technical difficulties. Jan won't have good availability, but we would, as long as Walter, you have some availability. I proposed 9. I do have some things tomorrow afternoon that I cannot shift around, but anytime between 8:30 or 9 and noon is open for me. So
9 is fine with me.
okay.
Is Jan heading for New York? Do you know? Is that what his availability issue is?
Yes, and I would say that as it, on the remaining agenda items, I think Jan simply writing an email, there's no discussion on it, but Jan getting his thoughts across to me and the board on the remaining items would help you and John figure out how you want to dispose of them. And then you could still have your executive session tomorrow, and maybe Jan simply participates via phone. That might be something that he can do for just that kind of constrained personnel thing. So I would, without objection from the board chair, I'm going to adjourn this meeting until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, where we will take up the remainder of item G and work through the remaining items at that time. You have any issues with that, Walter? I mean, if we thought that.
Okay, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Yeah.
No,
It's been funky for everyone.
Yeah, weird.
Yeah.
Because you're on Spectrum.
I am, but I'm closer into Rockland. There might be, I'm closer to the hub than you are. Penny is even closer to the hub than me, and she's still good. But you closer to the island.
I'm on the T1 line through Consolidated.
This is Sandra. I'm on Spectrum and I hear you. Much help it does you.
Yeah. Okay, so Owen, why don't you adjourn us and we'll reassemble at 9 tomorrow morning.
You're on mute, Owen.
He's on the phone.
Oh, I think it has something to do with Venus and Mercury and Mars and all that retrograde stuff.
Well, the light show was last night, right? Is it still going on?
I'm not sure. I have enjoyed the new street lights when I go home after dark. But they're on at 9 in the morning, which is odd.
I would have adjourned us, but John.
I think we're reconnected. Our TV just came back.
He thinks he's reconnected. I don't.
Can you see me?
No, goodness no.
Well, I'm launching a meeting here.
John is attempting to reconnect. So-
But I think that's his end. I'm gonna call Jan, see if he can connect. Walter, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can, I'm back. I'm gonna call Jan. Boy, this is weird. I'm back in. Do you want to try?
Okay, just a moment, sure.
Walter, Jan's gonna try to come back in. So Walter, is your connection better now?
Yep.
Was that on your end or are you Spectrum too?
No, it's, there's something, well, first of all, the connection was unstable for a while. I got that error message.
Yeah,
But on my MacBook, the operating system upgrade is in conflict with some security settings, and I solved that problem once, but I haven't solved it again.
I'm not sure we're out of the woods yet because my wife said the TV just flickered again or something, so went off and came back, but
So do we want to go as long as we can or reassemble it the 9 o'clock tomorrow?
well, I'm wondering, Walter, if we Jan said he could participate by phone at 9 tomorrow, but I'm wondering if we could, other than Mindy's agreement, which we do need, right? Which I think could take a few seconds. In the executive session, could we just table everything until tomorrow? Would that make sense?
I would support that because who knows what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes with the technology.
Yeah, or we could start the executive session and then if we successfully complete that, we could come back and try to do bump a few more items off, but. Do you want to take back over his chair or?
Sure.
Okay.
Actually, but I don't have the, actually, John, would you continue? Because I don't have
Yeah,
the agenda
okay.
with me on this platform.
Okay, I guess I request a motion to approve the dental language as proposed.
Second.
Yep, so moved. Second.
Second. Okay, further discussion? All those in favor?
Right.
Say
So
aye.
Audio aye.
Spear aye. Okay, the leave time, I think we can, and the personnel discussion, I think we can table. So is there a motion to table those two items?
So move.
Second.
Further discussion? Nope, no discussion on tabling. Okay. All those in favor?
Aye. Right.
Audio aye.
Okay. Jan, do you need to speak about the transfer station or can that be tabled?
Actually, it's my agenda. Just
Yeah, I
quick
know.
up. We can table that.
Okay, because you're breaking up still, so. Okay. So is there a motion to table?
So move.
transfer station table. Second.
Okay. Acceptance of letter of resignation from the town administrator. Do I have a motion?
You need to vote on your tabling motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. All those in favor of tabling the previous item?
Right eye.
Audio, aye.
Spear, aye. Thank you, Owen. Acceptance of the letter of resignation from the town administrator.
We accept the letter as written.
Second,
Discussion?
I just do want to make note again of a list of accomplishments, which include the street lights, includes the new website, includes some very good hiring, although we lost Chelsea, but Owen did hire her and he found Mo. So there's a legacy that he'll leave behind that will last for a long time. Thank you.
Welcome.
Owen, I wish you luck in your future endeavors, whatever they may be.
Thank you.
Jan, anything?
I mean, no, I echo that. I think Owen knows how I feel about his future, but
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, all those in favor?
Right eye.
audio, aye.
Spear, aye. My understanding is 8, we don't need to take any action on. That was an issue that 8A, that was an issue that I raised, and it's not an issue.
No, we had added the audit approval after J under new business. So you're now on,
That's correct. I'm sorry. Okay, so, yeah. K is agreement with Maine Audit Services. Is that their name?
yes,
Maine
Maine
Municipal. Audit.
Municipal,
yeah.
Maine Municipal Audit Services. Is there a motion?
A motion to accept the audit date, Owen, is that my understanding?
No, the letter of engagement, isn't it?
Yes, it's just a letter of engagement and I do need a signature on it. So it would be to accept it and then possibly empower someone to sign it.
You're talking about what you sent out dated 2 December as a letter of engagement?
Yes, we have so this is the last year of a 3-year agreement with her. Every year we do this letter of engagement. It just lays out what she's going to do. So it's not necessarily a contract. It's saying I'm going to do what's in this letter.
Okay. I move that we accept the letter of engagement. Sign it.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Right eye.
Audio, aye.
Spear, aye.
We want to additionally move that Owen sign it as the management signature.
Or I can drop by tomorrow.
Okay. Well, it looks like we've got a management and a governance, right? So I don't know if that's Owen and you both, or what is that?
So yeah, I'll sign for management, and if you can just vote for Walter to sign for governance on behalf of the board.
Yeah, I move the chair sign the audit service intention letter on behalf of the board.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Right eye.
Audio, aye.
Spear, aye. Can I suggest we table all items in old business, and then if we get time, we could come back to that?
Sure.
Good motion?
Go ahead, Will.
Move to table the old business.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Right eye.
Audio, aye.
Spear, aye. Do we need to schedule any future meetings?
I would suggest the scheduling of one more meeting, agenda yet to be determined, before the end of the month, to do some potential cleanup items. Not a full agenda, meeting minutes, going over and getting meeting minutes approved. Anything that might come up between now and then for additional guidance on any of our financials, and just possibly Wednesday, December 30th, Tuesday, December 29th, Monday, December 28th. Either of those 3 days might work.
Are you talking about a day meeting?
A day meeting, something that could be brief, depending, but at least scheduling the meeting with agenda
Yeah.
to be determined.
Okay, I can do any time. Tuesday's not good for me. I have a doctor's appointment in midday, but I can work around that. The 28th and the 30th are fine.
Any of you three have any conflicts on the 28th, 29th, or 30th, other than what John mentioned?
I don't have any until 4 o'clock on the 30th. And then I'm out for that day.
Yeah.
Actually, no, that's not true. I have no conflicts on any of those days.
I have no conflict during the days of those days.
Well, why don't we do the 28th then? Because that, if something comes up, that gives us a couple of days to potentially correct something or before the close. So I want to say 10 a.m. on the 28th?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right, and then, so I would look for a motion for us to enter executive session to discuss a personnel matter.
So move.
Second.
In accordance,
Yeah, do you want your cheat sheet? Sorry, give me one
No.
second.
that's all right.
Oh, that's illegal.
I got it too here somewhere.
All right, it is 1 MRS section 405 6A1 to discuss personnel matters.
So move.
Second? Jan?
And second.
Okay. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Right side.
Audio eye.
Spear, aye. So Owen, you'll kind of shut us down and come back when we're ready? And take